Alright, this is going to be a very quick disassembly of the Action Army AAP-01. And this is going to be about the lower half of the gun, so pretty much this whole just grip area here. The first step that you need to do is you need to separate the two halves from each other. So to do that, you're going to rack the gun, and then you're going to press this button on the back side right here. You're going to press that in, and that'll allow you to pop the two halves apart from each other. Alright, once you do that, you can set this piece here aside because we're not going to be touching that today. So that's just going off to the side. And here we have just the lower. Right. The first step is going to be to remove all of the screws. And there's going to be 3 screws. There's one inside of there, and then there's one on either side right here. So I do these ones first, and that's going to be a 2mm Allen wrench. That's going to be the only Allen wrench you're going to need today. And all 3 of these screws are going to be the same, so it's not going to matter about mixing them up. They're all exactly the same. Alright, so we got all 3 of those screws set aside. The next step is going to be removing this safety bar here. So to do that, you're going to push it out that way. So I have my gun like this. So basically this red O-ring is going to be the back of it going out. Alright, to do that, you just push it, and then you're going to have to push that little arm to the side that's in there. Right, so you grab your Allen wrench. You just got to push that to the side a little bit. It'll pop out, and then you just pull it out the rest of the way. You can set that to the side. Alright, the next step is going to be removing some of the pins. So the first pin that I'm going to remove is going to be the trigger pin right here. So you're going to push all of them out from this side. And they're all going to go out that way. They have a little knurling on the back side of them. So to do that, I just use my Allen wrench. It's going to go, they're not super difficult, so you can normally just push them out with the wrench. Sometimes you need a little bit of force, but they aren't too difficult. So that guy's out. We'll set that to the side there. And now you can pretty much take out this whole piece here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Just going to pop it out here. So this piece is going to go up here. Don't need to touch that really. This spring comes off. And you can take out your slide catch and the spring that goes along with that guy. We'll set it to the side. And now we just have the trigger and the rear assembly there. All right, so to do that, you push out the pins here. So there's the 2 pins again. Just gotta press those guys out. Use the same Allen wrench. It's not normally too difficult. The one that goes in the back here is kind of like a dumbbell looking pin. And then the one that's here is just like a straight pin. So I set those all to the side. Alright. Now, before you take this whole piece out, you need to be aware that there is a spring, and there's a spring that's right under here. It's holding this piece in here. So make sure you carefully take it out, and to do that, you're going to need to press in on the back button again. And that's going to kind of unlatch it in the back there, and then you want to take it out slowly. And so you see it popped out a little bit, and that's just because there is the spring that is under there. All right, so now that guy's out. The first thing I do is I disconnect the trigger piece, so I set that to the side, and then I carefully remove that guy, and I get the spring out. All right. I kind of keep it all a little bit sorted there, just so I know where everything goes. So generally, if when you're taking this part, there's going to be two main reasons you're going to want to do that. It's going to be either to switch out the trigger here to an adjustable trigger, or it's going to be to do the hammer back here. All right. The hammers on these are the easiest part to break on these guns. Just if you upgrade anything else, they're gonna break a little bit quicker. So to get these guys out, what you're gonna want to do here is there's this pin that's right there. You're gonna punch that one out. It goes out the same way all the other pins did. So I grab my wrench again and I just push it through. And these aren't supposed to be super tight in there, so you should be able to just grab it with your hand. Set that to the side. I don't want to mix any of my pins up. And then the spring here. Take that guy out. And then you want to remove this little piece here. So that's all the pieces that were back there. And then now we're left with just the hammer part in there. So to get that out, this pin actually goes out backwards compared to all the other pins. So you're going to turn it over here. You're going to grab your wrench again, and you just got to poke it through. And this piece is going to have a little bit of resistance in comparison to all the other ones, but it does come out. It's not too difficult. Set that to the side there. And then now you're going to have the rest of your pieces that kind of fall out a little bit. So there's your hammer and spring and all that stuff. And then you have this guy. It's basically your firing pin there. All right. So now we have it disassembled. Now, putting it back together. The hammer has this spring here. So you want the little arm of that spring to be pointing towards the heart-shaped piece of metal right there. And you have the longer piece is sticking out down below, right? Set that to the side because the first piece that we put in is going to be the firing pin. This is a little triangle thing. So basically, in the gun, it's going to sit this orientation, right? And there is a little slot in there for it to fall straight into. If you can see that there, it might be a little bit difficult, but there's a slot in there that it slides right into. So you pop that guy in. Right? And then I want to get this guy in. So this piece, the spring latches on to part of the actual back piece here. So the spring is going to latch on to that ledge right there, all right? It doesn't latch on the inside, it's going to latch right here on the outside. And that's where that spring on the hammer is going to latch onto, all right? So to put this guy in, you turn it back to the side here, and we basically drop it in from the top. And we want to try to make sure that we catch that spring on that little ledge there when we put it in. This is probably the hardest part of this disassembly. All right, so we have that latched on the ledge there. And then we kind of push everything down a little bit because we want to be able to fit that pin in. So this part kind of basically needs 3 hands, but it's possible. And then you want to slide that pin in. And I'm going to get it poked in just a little bit, and then I kind of readjust everything. And push again, and push it all the way through. And now it's back in. All right. And that's the hardest part of reassembling. All right. Now, we need to grab this piece. So this piece goes back in there again. So there's a hole in the back side, and that's where the pin goes through. And this little bar here that's going vertically, that's basically going to line up here on this ledge. So we're just going to pop that guy back in there. He just kind of falls into place, so it's not too much work there. And then we grab the pin again, and we're going to push it through about halfway, and then we grab our spring, and this guy is going to sit in there. So there's a little 90 degree part up here. That part is going to be facing that way, and then this little straight part rests on the back of that firing pin there, and then you want to push the pin through a little bit again, move it all the way through. All right, sorry about that interruption there. All right, so we got the spring back in there, and then we need to latch this piece back on in there. So to do that, it's going to latch onto that the little loop on the firing pin there. So it's easier if you pull back the hammer a little bit and you push forwards on the firing pin right there. It'll be easier to get to, and then you can just kind of bring that spring over and latch it into the gun. It is a spring, so you don't want to overbend it or anything, but it will go in there, and so now it's all back in there. All right, so now we're about to put it back in here. So to do that, first we need to put these two last pieces back on. So you get your spring, you just set it back on there, and this guy is going to go in there. You kind of push the spring down a little bit, and then you push it in, and it kind of locks into place. It's not in there, so you still need to hold on to it, but it kind of latches into place there. And then I normally get this in here about halfway into the gun. Sometimes it's a little bit fiddly if I don't have all the pins put in correctly, so make sure all your pins are all kind of flush. It's not going to go in if none of the pins are flush. And you kind of get it in halfway, and I stop about there. And then you get the trigger back in. So trigger goes trigger part in first. You put it down in that trigger hole, and then this piece is going to latch on inside of there. So lift this piece up a little bit till you see that gap in there. When you see that gap in there, you're going to start trying to get that guy kind of fit in there. And once you do, you can push everything back down. Right, and then you can close this guy back up. So you push in the back button and you press everything down, and that's pretty much in there. So we can actually put those pins in now if we would like. So I'm going to do that. So again, pins all go one way. So one side has this knurling on it, and then the other side is just smooth, right? So they all go one way. So we're going to flip this guy over. And then this is the longer pin, the dumbbell pin. This one goes in the top here. So you press it in, and then I grab my punch, and I just push it till it's flush. And then I go on to the next rear pin, and it's going to be this guy. And same way, you just push it in until it's flush. All right, there we go. Now the back there is done. And now we're going to work on the front part. So the first part is going to be this guy. So you just press this guy in. He's going to sit there loose because there's a couple things we got to do before we put it in. The first thing, after we have that guy kind of just resting there, grab your slide catch here, and then also your spring. So the spring is going to be latched onto that little bar right there to kind of get it latched on. And then it should look kind of like that when you have it latched on. So you just have that little arm that's poking up. And that guy is going to slide in between the trigger and the whole little front block that you just put in. So it just kind of slides in there. I kind of keep my finger there until I get it in most of the way. And it's good. It's just going to rest right there. Or actually, hold up. Let's try that again. Sometimes it takes a couple tries just because everything's all loose right now. So we slide that guy in there, and we just let that guy sit. Alright, sorry about that interruption. I'm back now. So we got the slide catch in there. The next piece is going to be this spring here, and that's going to latch on to the little hook on the trigger bar there. So it's going to latch onto there, and then the other loop is going to latch onto that block there, into the little pin that you see sticking out. So we're going to get that guy on the trigger portion first, and then we're going to go up here, and sometimes you can even just pull it by hand and get it latched on. Sometimes you need to use a little hook tool or a pair of needle nose pliers, but it's gonna go on there. There we go. Right. So now that's on there, so we can put this pin back through. So we just put it on here. You're gonna have to fiddle with the trigger a little bit to make sure it's all lined up. But once it's good in there, it'll just slide right through. Right, like that. Then you take your little Allen wrench again, you just push it till it's flush, and then you're good there. Alright, so the next piece is going to be this piece again. It's your trigger bar, and you'll notice it says up right there, and that part goes up obviously. And we're going to do this red O-ring part in first, and it's going to come in from that side over there. So it comes in over here. You kind of push it in, and to get it all the way in, you're gonna have to pull on that little T there with your wrench or your punch or whatever you're using. You're just pulling that a little bit, and then it'll go in. It'll pop into place, and then you're good there. Then you're gonna grab your screws again. You're gonna kind of rest those in there. I totally just lost mine under there, alright? So, make sure you don't lose your screw under there, but that screw isn't very important. I don't have that in my personal gun. So that's gonna go under there. Screw that guy on. And then you flip it over. You do that side there. And you're gonna grab this guy, and this one's easier if you put it on the actual screwdriver. You kind of poke it in there, and then you screw that guy in. Alright, so that guy's on there. Now we're going to test it before we put it back in. So you could have done this, basically as soon as you put the trigger pin in, you could have done this. So basically, you pull the trigger back, you pull it until it clicks once, alright? If you pull any more than the first click, it's not going to work. Then you press down on this piece right here, and then you can pull the trigger, and if it shoots, then it's good there, alright? So I like to kind of get everything put down again before I put the second part on. So putting the upper on, you just kind of hook it onto the front there. It'll kind of pop into place, and then you close it up in the back, and then you press on this button here, and it's going to close up, and you're good to go. You got your whole gun, and it's fully functioning and ready to go. All right, there you have it.